It is Monday, so we're going to be looking back at the past week of Blue Jackets action. I say that in quotes, starting with the standings update for the week. So right now, the Blue Jackets currently back in last place in the NHL. They are tied with Chicago in terms of points and games played, but the Blackhawks do have more regulation wins. So right now, Chicago is holding the tiebreaker over the Blue Jackets. The Anaheim Ducks got a point yesterday against the Avalanche. They're now 2 points ahead of both the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks now, but they have one less game remaining on their schedule. This is definitely a spirited race to the bottom between the Blackhawks, Blue Jackets, and Ducks at this point. The San Jose Sharks still could mathematically finish last, but they would have to essentially lose out and have a lot of the results involving those three teams that I just mentioned. Basically, they would have to win a lot of games that they probably wouldn't be winning if the world were to continue as it is. So as far as the Blue Jackets are concerned, he started last Tuesday against the Leafs in Toronto. They lose 4-2. Definitely the Blue Jackets' best showing of the week. It was Jet Greaves getting his first NHL start against Joseph Woll. Jet was called up for this game only. He was sent back down to Cleveland after playing this game. It was nice of the organization to have him get his first NHL start against his hometown favorite team. Nice to see the hometown kid get there. It seemed like a lot of the Toronto fans as well had generally positive feelings about this whole story, but besides them wanting to, obviously they want their team to win, but they did feel like it was a nice story for him to get his start against the Maple Leafs, and it was kind of a best of both worlds for everybody because the Jackets did lose and the Toronto did win, and Jackets fans, we got a competitive showing out of the Blue Jackets, which is what we want to see. We want to see this team compete, but ultimately not try to damage their chances of getting a top pick. Jet Greaves played great, by the way. He only allowed 3 goals and on about 50 shots. If it wasn't 50 that the Blue Jackets gave up, then it was pretty darn close to 50 if it wasn't that. But Zach Aston Reese scoring 2 goals just seems to continue this trend of, if you're having a scoring slump or you're having a bad time, you need a team to ail your remedies. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they're here to help. Zach Aston Reese getting 2 goals. I see that this game was on TSN up in Canada, and he scored a good number of goals on TSN broadcasted games. So that's another thing that was a thing, I guess. Jack Roslovic and Eric Robinson's goals were enough to keep the game close for the majority of it, but it never really felt like it was Columbus's to take. It really just felt like the Maple Leafs were just kind of maybe having it seemed like they were having an easy go of it despite the final score being a bit close, and Austin Matthews icing it with a long empty net goal, and that was pretty much it. And there was a little something for every Blue Jackets fan in this one. For the ones that want to see a competitive hockey game, you definitely got it. Again, this was a 3-2 hockey game before the empty net goal, so it's not like the Jackets were getting completely blown out. And if you want them to try to get the best draft pick possible, they didn't pick up any points. They were definitely going to lose this one, and that's what happened. So there's a little bit of something for all of us, for all the Jackets fans to kind of gather around and sing Kumbaya around this game against Toronto. But then you get to Thursday in New Jersey against the Devils. They lose 8-1. This was definitely a rout through and through. Now, it was only 1-0 after the first period from a Jack Hughes goal, but then it was pretty much New Jersey putting their foot on the gas for the entire way through. Johnny Gaudreau left mid-first period with some sickness. I think he only lasted 3 shifts before, I'm guessing he had to go, had to run to the bathroom, and that was it for him for the game. The only positive spin for Columbus for this one was Yuna Luoto. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong. He got his first NHL goal on what I kind of thought would have been called back for goaltender interference, but I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what they consider or not consider goaltender interference anymore. I just say, okay, that's what they're calling it this time or not. And they said the goal was going to stand, and that was the only goal that Columbus got. And, good for Luoto to get his first NHL goal. But besides that, it was pretty much just a really rough game to watch on all fronts for Columbus anyway. I'm sure Devils fans were very much enjoying that game. John Gillies did have another NHL appearance in this one after Michael Hutchinson was pulled after the 5th goal, and they did not stop scoring because there was a new goaltender. The Jackets defense was essentially Swiss cheese in this one. Although I will say that the Devils-Rangers series, that's going to happen. Whoever gets home ice, that Devils-Rangers series is going to be really fun to watch in the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, that's who the Jackets rounded out the week with. Back at home against the Rangers, they lose 4-0, getting shut out on 5th line appreciation night. It was Michael Hutchinson against Igor Shesterkin in net, and even though the score isn't as lopsided as 8-1, it was definitely the same kind of the same kind of a route where the Jackets were really just out of it from the opening faceoff. Igor Shesterkin getting the shutout. He only faced 20 shots, so it's not like the Jackets were pouring it on or anything. But, Igor, he did make some nice saves, but again, he only had to face 20 shots from this Blue Jackets team on Saturday. And the team's injuries are really starting to make the Blue Jackets look like what they are, and that's minor league at this point. Half of the roster has just been call-ups from guys. So there were Monsters fans that were mad about some of the call-ups that came for this game, like David Jiricek, who's been really good for the Monsters this season, and Trey Fix-Wolansky, who's also been a productive point scorer in the AHL. Some of the Monsters fans are kind of upset because the Monsters are in the thick of a playoff race. They did lose the game that they had some of their players out for, and Laval won their game, so right now they're out of a playoff spot, but they have games in hand and they're competing. And when you get, you lose some of your best guys and then you fall out of a playoff spot, I understand the anger there, but the big league club does need people to fill in the roster spots that are needed to fill in order to ice an NHL team. So sometimes you just have to swallow it. I'm sure the Blue Jackets ideally wouldn't be calling up these people either. It's just that guys who play Blue Jackets uniforms keep getting hurt, so they have to call up guys who usually wear Cleveland Monsters uniforms, and that's just how the season's gone throughout the entire season. They're not going to stop calling up good Monsters players just because of Cleveland's playoff race. I mean, that might stink, but that's just not what they're going to do. Speaking of, I mentioned that it seems like the Jackets are the teams that people will break their scoring slumps against. Niko Mikkola scoring his first goal of the season as a New York Ranger. That's also his first goal since January of 2022. I think it was like 100-some games that he's played. So again, just another one of those, well, if you haven't scored in a while, play the Blue Jackets and maybe that will change. This was a rather dull showing in front of a decently sized crowd for Fifth Line Appreciation Night, although I will say there were a bit of Rangers fans in the crowd, though. Maybe some Rangers fans making the trip, making one of the last regular season games of the year. Maybe some people who were Rangers fans that live in Columbus decided that, today is the day they're going to get to play this game. I'm sure Jackets tickets are sort of cheap at this point of the season and where the Blue Jackets are at this point. Overall, after a competent showing against the Maple Leafs, this week has, the wheels are really starting to fall off the butts for this team on just the right time, depending on who you ask. Because again, there is a race to the bottom here between three teams, and the Blue Jackets are definitely one of those teams. The Blue Jackets have 3 games left. By next Monday, I will wrap all of those up, and then the season will be over for the Blue Jackets. There's obviously not going to be any playoffs, and the next important date after the regular season ends will be on May 8th when the draft lottery is conducted. So the reasons that I have to still watch these 3 games is that I hope to see Kirill Marchenko score some more and improve on his already franchise record for goals by a rookie in a season. Hopefully he can get he can pocket some more goals. Hopefully they don't cost the Blue Jackets any standings points, but eventually I do want to see him get a little more goals to end the year with. Elvis Merzlikins getting another game in net would be nice. I mean, maybe with his injury situation that might be impossible, but I'd like to see him get in the net one more time before this season ends and try to end the season off on a high note for him personally. And hopefully, if all things work out, the Blue Jackets can guarantee themselves a top 3 pick after this year's awful season, where it does feel like if the Blue Jackets do go through this whole entire season and they end up drafting 4th and they miss out on the 3 top center prospects, and maybe this might, it kind of feels like, man, this whole year of suffering was actually, it didn't work out the way we want. But the draft has a funny thing of, lottery luck can befall the Blue Jackets maybe for once in their franchise history, or maybe one of the prospects that goes forth is actually does much better than projected. There's a lot of possibilities that could happen that I could probably get more in detail in a future video. But that's pretty much going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far into it, I'll see you at the next one.